Welcome, folks. Today we'll be talking about female sexual anatomy and physiology. And with that, we'll be talking about the internal and external reproductive structures, if you will, of the female anatomy. We begin outside, externally, with the term vulva, V-U-L-V-A. Vulva refers to the external reproductive and sexual structures of the female body, and this involves a number of key components, one of which is known as the mons veneris or the mons pubis, this curved fatty cushion that's right around the waist area of a girl or a woman's body. And this acts as a cushion to the internal reproductive structures of the female anatomy. Also, with that, we have the clitoris attached to the vagina itself, this small cylindrical shaped organ that is erectile in nature, much like the penis is. And evolutionarily speaking, the sole purpose for the clitoris is indeed sexual pleasure. We also have the inner and outer folds, the labia majora and labia minora of the vagina. Also within the vagina, we have the G spot. There's some controversy as to whether or not it actually exists, named by and for Ernest Grafenberg, the gynecological researcher, that for some women, according with his research, this dime-sized area, the G-spot in the lower third of the front of the vagina, when stimulated for some women, it leads to very vigorous contractions and orgasmic responses. And these fluids are thought to be expelled by the Skene's glands, which are part of the vagina itself. Internally, we have the uterus, the site of zygote and child maturation, as well as the site of monthly menstrual activity. Thick muscular organ the uterus is, shaped like an inverted pear, and it's flanked on the sides at the top by the ovaries, where egg or ova mature and egg maturation occurs. And you have also sort of somewhat attached or closely connected to the ovaries, you have the fallopian tubes. You've got toward the end of the fallopian tubes these finger-like projections known as fimbriae that sense the maturation of the egg or eggs during monthly menstrual activity. And so the fimbriae have a waving and sensing motion that picks up the mature ova, leaving the ovary, and it sweeps the, if you will, fimbriae sweeps the egg or the ova into the fallopian tubes to later on be deposited on the endometrial layer of the uterus. And again, the endometrial layer is the site of monthly menstrual activity and is where the zygote actually embeds itself for the gestation of a pregnancy. During puberty, you have a number of glandular structures that are involved in the female maturation cycle, in the body getting ready to and responding to maturation, as well as the ability to be fertile. At the base of the brain, you have the hypothalamus, which gets involved. And again, this can, depending on the girl, this may vary, and often this is based upon weight, among other physiological characteristics. We often find that in heavier populations and heavier girls, we'll find the onset of puberty occurs earlier. Nevertheless, at the base of the brain, typically between the ages of 9 and 13, the hypothalamus gets involved. It releases gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH for short, which invokes the pituitary gland to get ramped up with respect to follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone production. So FSH and LH, they're produced by the pituitary gland. And so this sort of 1-2 step action between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland gets things going. So these hormones are released into the bloodstream, and that is what invokes egg maturation, ovary maturation, and development. It also has a lot to do with the maturation of a woman's body, a young girl's body, from late childhood throughout adolescence and into early adulthood.